Hello. How's everybody doing today? So, you like my earrings? They're gonna hurt me because I need like the hypoallergenic ones because I'm all sensitive and stuff. But wanted to come and talk to you, and I felt like being fancy. Who doesn't need some morning fanciness? Tell me that. I do. I needed it this morning. I did. I really did. Okay, I honestly don't even know what I'm going to say about this topic. But it felt important. It felt like something I had to talk about. Okay. They're not going to stay up because that just looks weird. So we're just going to let them be like that. But I wanted to talk about this because I had a sex issue today, the last couple days, and I went to go talk to my friend about it. Based on all the shit that's been happening in my life, when I went to go talk to her, she just laughed. She laughed at me. Not at me. Yeah, at me. Whatever. And she was like, "Oh, really? That's it?" She was just like, she's like, "I'm so relieved. So relieved this is just about sex, considering everything else that has happened." And I'm like, oh my God, you're so fucking right. You're so right. And okay, without going into too much detail, we've been busy at our house and, you know, we haven't quite had the physical connection in our marriage right now that we typically do. And we've been together for 11 years, so it's kind of like ebbed and flowed throughout those years. And just like me, how I feel about myself, him, how he feels about himself, what's going on in our lives, what's stressful, who died, all these things that have kind of like played into the dynamic of sex. Like there's so many different pieces, there's so many different parts. And so this happened to be a lull, and I don't know what my deal is in my feminine cycle, but something triggered me and I was not happy. I was actually super emotional. And this is really vulnerable and weird to talk about, but I'm doing it anyways. So I got upset and my friend was like, "That's funny. You know, what's the deal? Why does this bother you?" And all these things. And I was like, I don't know. Like, I'm just sitting here right now and I'm horny, like right now, like right in this moment, just sitting here talking to you. And she just thought that was hysterical. And I was like, okay, let me like try to reframe this. And this is why we have people to talk to, why we have support, why we have coaches and all these things, just so we can like bounce these ideas off each other and talk about them. And she's like, well, what if you just like surrendered? And I was like, oh my God, why had I not thought of that? Like something that seems so like cut and dry, like sex, like you're either having it or you're not, or like it's good or it's not. And you invite this like whole perspective of surrender in, of faith almost, of maybe this is just what it needs to be right now. It does ebb and flow. I've seen that over time. Can I just trust the process of sex life in marriage and just let it be what it's going to be? And it's two people, right? It's two different people who are like experiencing two different myriads of emotions, and sometimes they just don't line up so that you can be in an intimate setting and satisfy each other's needs and all these things. And you know, sometimes you just have to satisfy your own needs, and that's just how it works. And it's actually, I've talked about this with my husband too, and he's like, sometimes it's just easier and more efficient, like to get it done. Like it's a biological need. We all need it. And it's so funny. I'm like wondering in my head right now how many people are going to pop on, either because they're interested and want to hear more about sex, or if they're like, oh, I don't want to talk about this subject. So that's interesting to me. That'll be interesting. I also feel like my look is very out of my element right now, but go with the flow. So, so surrendering your sex life. I was like, yeah, maybe there is a purpose to this. Maybe there is this reason that right now I'm feeling like horny and like wanting to have sex, but I can't, and I don't have anybody to have it with, and in this moment right now. And it's been a few days like that, so it's kind of like I've kind of gotten sucked into that, feeling of, oh, this is gonna last forever. I'm like, it's never gonna happen again. It's gonna be a difficult thing, and we have to talk about it. And that's, luckily I'm in a relationship with my husband where we do very openly talk about these things and can connect on them. And after my night of like being upset about it and then doing my own thing, I texted him this morning. I was like, we kind of need to have a conversation about this. So, and he's completely open to it, which is a beautiful thing. But the fact that my friend laughed at me and was just like, oh my God, really? That's what your issue is right now with sex? I'm like, it just cracked me up because I was like, you know what? You're so fucking right. Like, why can't I look at this from a completely different point of view and say, okay, maybe this is here for a purpose. Maybe this is here because I need to learn a lesson, or maybe, there's some kind of expansion that I can do on myself in this moment by looking at this, like, feelings that I'm having and then being able to step out of it and look at things in a new way. And by surrendering the outcome of what I want right now in this moment, I can then open myself up to a new perspective and be in a place of, joy around what this is going to turn into and how it's going to look. And so yeah, this is super vulnerable to talk about, but it's like, it is what it is. And there are these big ebbs and flows. And I've said that 3 times here in a marriage, and especially when you've been married for a long time, that, people are in different spaces and places and emotional states and physical states where they aren't as open, willing, and ready to perform when you need, or maybe you're not. So, and I was going to post something about this earlier today too, about how, like, especially in the spiritual world, especially in the entrepreneur world, we get very, in law of attraction, we get caught up in this, we have to be positive all the time, and, don't think anything negative and don't feel anything. And I definitely felt like I got caught up in that with this situation where I was like, oh, like, why am I like annoyed about this? Why am I mad about this? And then, of course, the tears just come out. They come flowing because they're like, oh, you can't stop me. Like, I have to express this. And so it was really fucking helpful. Like, and to not judge it. And I totally did judge it at first, obviously. But just having that perspective of somebody else, of being like, oh my gosh, not to devalue your feelings or whatever, but just to reframe and to have a new perspective about this and to be open to receiving a new perspective. And we don't think about that with receiving. We always think about, like, getting something, but it's like, it's a psychological thing too, or a spiritual thing too, where we're opening up and we're allowing ourselves to experience something different also, and have a new perspective and look at this differently, instead of maybe your situation, oh, I'm being deprived, oh, I'm not, feeling it, so I don't want to give it up, like, whatever that is for you, shifting that into, okay, how can I learn from this? What can I learn? And remembering too that, like, your down there area is in the chakra system, it's your creative energy center. So maybe those feelings of urges and horniness and whatever you want to call it are your creative juices flowing, and that's a good thing. Like, whether, and if they're not getting satisfied in sex or from other people or yourself, then you can maybe turn it around and look at it and say, okay, what can I gather from this? Like, how can I use my energies in other ways? Maybe I need to create something new. And I know for me that, like, I'm totally done having kids, but I have like zero interest, like even babies. I'm like, yeah, baby's great, like whatever. I definitely get excited for people, but I'm like, I could hold the baby or I could not. It's not that really big of a deal to me. But I still have that urge, that instinctual urge to create children within me right now. And shifting that, you know, like moving that out of the way and saying, what is this really at a deeper level? What am I seeking? What am I wanting to create in my life? And for me, I know it's my business. It's reaching even more people. It's changing lives. It's influencing people to live the way they want to live and truly live from their soul and be more grounded in their purpose and what they want to fucking create in their lives. So that's a big reframe too. So just thinking about that, like if you have any kind of like shit going on in your marriage and making that connection with sex or otherwise, just looking at it in a different way and saying, okay, first of all, how can I talk about this if I feel the need to talk about it? And how can I tap into my creative energy? Like if I am feeling those ways, obviously you can totally satisfy yourself and you can spread that creative energy elsewhere. What else can you create? So the art of receiving your badass desires is open. I will post the info in the comments. I mean, and this is all related to that topic of just receiving what we desire and having it show up in alignment with who we are right now and who we are in the future. And we don't really think of that again as like receiving, but it's all connected. Like I went into this thinking about receiving money and clients if you have a business, or if you just want to receive more in your life in general, or things like that. Like you want to receive sex, you want to like have your urges and sexual life satisfied, and there's nothing wrong with that. So much love to all of you. This was a very unexpected morning live stream for me. I was supposed to bring my cat to the vet and I can't find him, so this is what I'm doing instead. Before I pick up the chitlins, this earring keeps going flat. Wampus. Okay. All right. Don't forget, this is your life. You get to choose. Choose from your soul.